the first one. Did you mention the boat? No, that the pleasure boat. Yes. I think if you want to go back to the. I think these look like rather intriguing images, but I think perhaps just in passing, this is a boat, an unfinished pleasure boat that was built in a garden by this uncle of his who was actually the printmaker. He's the man who inspired him to experiment with print. And the boat was never finished. And when he finally retired and he could have finally put the boat in the sea and start enjoying it, he decided to burn it. And so the boat never saw the light, and so that never saw the water. So again, that element of nostalgia, I think, is very present, and the repetition also makes the memory even more haunting in a way. So, anyway, but maybe if we move further.
Then we have another Brazilian artist, Rodrigo Mateus. And in a way, Rodrigo is a bit different from the other ones because he really started his career in Brazil, and he just recently moved to the UK, just like 2 years ago. And this use of kind of ready-made materials that you see in this piece is quite characteristic of Rodrigo's production. So, you know, very differently from some of the other artists as well. Like he always uses industrialized objects in his objects, installations, wall sculptures, or in this particular case, I mean, the image of the picture frame, well, the actual picture frame is something that has been used in previous works. And I think it deals a lot with a particular side of his production where he investigates systems of display that are characteristic of the art world. In other cases, he has, for instance, when he did his presentation at this group exhibition in Brazil called the Panorama da Arte Brasileira, which is it's a biennial group show that's supposed to be kind of like the British art show, but to cover the Brazilian territory. He used only the materials that he could find in the exhibition space. So things like they are characteristic of the installation process, such as crates or lighting. In this presentation, he gathered these materials in kind of temporary sculptural constructions that completely dissipated after the exhibition was finished and were returned into this back into circulation to the original function. In this case, these are very different because these are actual individual pieces that continue to exist after the fair is finished, but again, he's like dealing with this idea of representation in art, and this is only the study, so we don't have here the actual pieces that are in the booth. This is the first study that he sent to us a few months ago, but they have each of them has very particular characteristics, and in one of them you can see the one that's the right-hand side of the booth, like the last one at the back. You have this picture frame on supported by the easel, and then you have a little round element, which is actually a ready-made frame. And at the back wall, there's a small nail that's part of the wood. So in this project, in this particular piece, there is this idea of playing with. It's almost like a semiotic game because you have the picture frame that's normally used to hold a picture that represents something else, but in this case, the picture frame is part of a system that's used to create the artwork itself. And then you have this little nail at the back, which kind of reinforces this idea that the frame is there to hold a kind of illusion, so it kind of makes itself in a way.
But I'm particularly fond of this nail from my years as a guide at the Tate, discussing Georges Braque, sort of seminal piece of cubist work of 1911 that has a nail and its shadow. And of course the nail is what is supposed to hold the painting at the back, or to hold the canvas at the back. But if you can see through the work, it means that the work is nothing but illusion. And so in that case, I think Rodrigo has a really funny take on that very important nail of Georges Braque.
I think we can say something more general about his work. It's always about reconfiguring existing objects, like very common everyday objects, like mostly industrialized, they can find in a corner shop or in a, IKEA, and building something else with it, and like, kind of performing a kind of symbolic shift that sometimes creates environments, sometimes creates individual pieces, but it's always about reconfiguring everyday objects. And unfortunately, this is not a very good image as well, because it's been changed a little, but we can get a sense of perhaps of what he's done in this book. Jorge Pedro Nunes is it's also a Venezuelan artist, so we have quite a few Venezuelans. And he lives in Paris, yeah. And the whole idea for the booth started from a research that he had previously about those stones. They actually, I think somewhere in China, where these people collect stones, they are in the shape of something else. And these stones are presented in very elaborate plinths and they're photographed like that. And I think Jorge Pedro went to a residence in China, and he got to know this practice, and he was fascinated by them. And he started to work with these images of these particular stones and the fascination that people have with them. So in the booth he has produced, there are 3 prints. It's not exactly this one, but one of the kind of sources for one of the images is a similar image. And there are 3 of them, and they are named after fruits, after tropical fruits. So you have this kind of, one of them is tamarind, the other is mango, I think, and the third one I can't remember. And then these are placed on the wall, and in the middle of the booth you have these 2 plinths, which they work like almost like architectural models in a way, but it's kind of a very constructivist, elaborate acrylic case that almost looks like a maquette, no? But inside he's placed like pieces of walls, which are kind of burnt out, like, so they have this kind of ruin quality. So they're actually kind of quite the opposite of these stones, but at the same time you have this idea of a stone being the artwork. So it's kind of almost opposites in a way.
I think that one of the characteristics of his works is a dialogue with modernity. Again, you know, this maybe Venezuelan complex, and so using the perspex and colored perspex also creates a dialogue with, in particular, Cruz Diaz, again Carlos Cruz Diaz, who's created quite a few structures in colored perspex, but at the same time it's a complete departure. He's clearly emancipated himself from the shadow of the great master. So I think, but it's a characteristic of his work always to engage that dialogue. Some of his heroes, in particular, and Marcel Duchamp is another one, and Cruz Diaz.
And I think there's a very interesting element, which is the man-made rock, which is the wall, is very kind of rough, really. And the natural rocks, they are depicted in the prints, are very perfect, almost like sculpture. So there is this kind of duality as well, between nature and man-made object.
Then we go to another Peruvian artist, so the second after Jimena Garrido-Leca and Chulos. Armando Andrade Tudela is now based in Berlin. He spent time in London, where he went to the Royal College of Art. He lived a few years in Amsterdam. And now he's based in Berlin after a fairly long stay in the very important French city of Saint-Étienne. Not quite, but I think it was an inspiring experience for him, apparently. And here he presents a series of three plinths, three sculptures that engage into another type of dialogue with modernity. They are made out of concrete. And the shapes, the sort of geometric shapes on them are often in perspex or in building materials that he recovers, creating a link with the work of Jorge Pedro Núñez. Actually, they sort of know each other and they admire each other, the artist we just spoke about. And he creates this work that are quite architectural, but at the same time very evocative. I think his technique, if anything, is a technique of collage. And so here you have a collage of material. In this work you have a piece of rattan, which of a sort of a woven rattan that you would expect to see on an antique chair or perhaps a beach chair. And so you have a word of urban architecture, decaying architecture that meets a sort of evocation of holidays, of beach, of a domestic interior, and it is in that sense that he has this notion of a collage.